Why am I here? Why am I doing a second episode of this? What happened? Hey everyone, Wanderbot here, and welcome to Temple. Bank, cookie clicker. Well, that's drastic. Oh my god, how much did temples get me? 7,800. That drastically is just going to kind of change the scaling on this whole system. Anyway, hey everyone, Wanderbot here, and welcome back to another episode of Cookie Clicker, the Cookie Cast. Let's see. So first things first, can I do this? I swear there was something. Is it under? I don't even know. Anyway, I'm gonna turn this off at full screen for a hot second. We're gonna dunk this cookie, if it lets me. It doesn't seem to want to let me dunk the cookie. Well, that's unfortunate. Whatever. Maybe I just need more. Turn full screen back on. Alright, so that ain't it. Legacy? No. Oh. Huh. Apparently I've been on this run for 1 day and 3 hours. Ascending now would grant me no prestige. Alright, people are saying there are achievements. Made the game in a couple hours for for laughs. Kind of starting to regret it. Oh well. But there's a thing here. The olden days. That's fun. I like the fact that there's patch notes for... let's see. There are patch notes for the entire dang game. I click on any of these? No. Find the Forgotten Madeline. I'm sure there's other cookies with achievements that I should pay attention to. But whatever. Cookie production multiplier plus 1%. I mean, that's nice. It's not huge, but it's nice. Do I even do anything else? Is it even worth it for me to click things? Maybe it is. Let me find my clicker script. I'm just gonna kind of be all over the place for a little while. Auto clicker 1exe. Oh, I guess I already had one. Oh gosh, I need to clear out my downloads folder. It's super full. Usually what I do instead is whatever. I'll just do this one. Usually what I do instead is I just reformat my computer like once a year. It usually clears up a lot of the kind of the trash that I've been lazy about specifically going out of my way to, like, you know. I have no idea how much of an effect that has. Not as much as I think I'd like. But it's okay. Grandmas are twice as efficient. Cookie production multiplier. Let's try that. I don't think that actually helps me too much. But at least it's now 1,000 per click, and I do click quite a lot. Anyway, yeah, I just reformat my computer specifically to clean it up. I'm not actually sure if that's the best way to do it, but I found over the years, because I've been making my own computers and, like, kind of handling them. And admittedly, I tend to... New E key is working fine, reports gleeful journalist. Cute. Right. I've been making computers... I mean, realistically, I've been helping my dad make computers since I was 4. Every time we get a new computer that wasn't a laptop, we'd build it custom. It was always really fun. We'd also take them apart, but mainly I mostly remember taking them apart with a hammer, because my dad was just like, yeah, here you go, just kind of rip things off. It's all getting... I don't actually know if it was going to the trash or getting recycled. And this is back in, like, 1994, so there wasn't exactly a whole lot of, well, I don't think it mattered as much. Nowadays, I'd feel gassed at doing that. I'd feel quite bad. I wonder if the double efficiency works with the bonus. Okay, let's try that. Yeah, boosting buildings, 51% for farms, 25 to mines. Did that boost it? No. I mean, it does make it that the grandmas are fairly efficient, but still. I don't know if cursors are really worth much. They're kind of there. I guess they're cheap. That's the main thing. Anyway, but yeah, so I always found, like, my computers would get kind of slow and trashy after, like, a couple of years. And so it just seems like, yeah, let's just, well, trashy and cheap. They just slow down and not work as well, so I'd always say, like, yeah, after a couple of years, just reformat it. kind of start fresh, wipe the slate clean, and hopefully everything works better. And for the most part, I think it does, but I also could be quite wrong on that account. I'm sure there are experts computers that have far better ways of, like, handling things and clearing their computers. Anyway, so why am I still doing this? The answer was, you guys really liked the first episode of this, and so I think I'm just going to kind of lean into it and treat this as kind of a weird de facto podcast where I just ramble about things for a couple hours. I don't think I will stream it just because. I don't know, I find that kind of distracts from the process. Not that, I really need any help getting distracted. I'm very distractible when it comes to picking topics to talk about. I will just get hung up on the details, or just my brain will hang. There's too many things to talk about, not enough time. It's actually part of the reason why I really wanted to start the Wanderbot Prime channel, was so that I could take a number of these thoughts that have been, sticking. National Day has been created in honor of your cookies. Those little news headers are going to distract me, probably more so than anything else. Let's get this one. Production multiplier plus an extra percent. It's not really that impactful now I'm thinking about it, but still, I have all of these thoughts stuck in my head as a result of, the various games that I play, and things going on in the world. What's a good example? I mean, I'm sure many of you people, who are you people? No, I'm sure many of you watching this video, you have at least a couple of things that you're, like, sort of specialized in, or you care deeply about, and you like talking about endlessly. And so for me, a lot of it is, like, game design, game craft, quality of life, gameplay, that kind of thing. And so from my perspective, it's really important to talk about, like, what makes games tick and how to improve them. But, other things too, tropes, writing styles, like, I really want to do one about how I'm really tired of the mentor characters in TV shows and medias just getting offed. Because it's just like, but I like those characters and I'm tired of them just getting killed off. I know that's the point. It means that they're hitting me right in the heartstrings, which is kind of the important part, but still. I really wish I could actually click on these to see what they did. Factories are twice as efficient. Well, I got 12 of them. Yeah, sure, why not? And realistically, I should probably just save up for another temple or something, because cripes. Let's see, what are the next ones? Gain more cookies per second the more milk you have. Well, I got a decent chunk of milk, and I'm not really sure why. I guess I'll just save up for that instead of thinking about anything else. Anyway, but so I just have all of these topics, these tropes and topics. I've got a list. I'll just read some of them out. While we're here, of just topics that I really do want to talk about for various reasons. I've also got story times that I'd like to start working on too. But, just going down the list, I've got repeated sound effects and battle voices are awful and I hate them. Many of these are gripes. Let's see. Rarely used game, sound, and visual accessibility options that instantly make games 1,000 times better. The easy option is just, like, having a sound slider for almost every type of sound. So, voices, combat voices, NPCs on the street voices, UI volume, combat noises, but within that, firearm and weapon noises. Having separate sound sliders for each and every one of those really makes my life better, because I really, like, imagine in this game if you heard, like, this clicking noise. Like, it's there, it's in the background, but it's really quiet. Imagine if it was louder, and you couldn't turn it down, and it was the same volume as C418. You'd lose your mind, right? I would. I lose my mind anytime a game does that, and it just bothers me. What else is there? Game tech trees suck, which is true. Early access is cookie dough. Don't demand it be cooked before it's ready. Oh. I think I need to think about that one. Somebody had, like, said that to me. And I just wrote that one down. But the idea of, like, early access games... Oh, you know what? I'm not actually sure what I was thinking when I wrote that one down. That one either could mean don't release an early access game before it's ready, or don't release a 1.0 on an early access game that isn't actually done. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking on that one. Unfortunately, I need to explain myself more, which is why I need to work on these topics. This is just spit notes that I usually write either in the middle of a stream or like when I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I've got one. I guess this should be a story time more than anything else. That's like me versus chickens. If I could design a Pokemon game. Let's see. Stop naming roguelikes Rogue whatever. You know, that worked for Rogue Legacy and pretty much Rogue Legacy. I literally cannot remember the names of any other Rogue blank. You know, yeah, I literally can't think of a single one other than Rogue Legacy, and there's dozens of them, but they're just unmemorable. That's the kind of thing I really want to talk about, and some of these things I think I might touch upon within the Cookie Cast, but at the same time, they're things that I really want to make standalone videos, just because. Anyway, let's see, so let's turn that off. So, I guess first and foremost, let's take a look if any of these are good. 1,000 fingers times 5, banks are twice efficient. I want to get this one, see what happens. How big is... Ooh, that's a free 6,000. I dig it. Let's probably just buy a bunch of these. I know there's a mod that actually tells you what's your most efficient upgrade at this moment. I might consider that, but I think I might consider that once we legacy bonus. We'll see. Anyway, so people were asking overwhelmingly. So I'd actually asked on Discord. I'm gonna see if I can leave a link to this post. I think I can, yeah. I'm gonna leave a link to this post that I put on my community tab. Or you guys could just go to the community tab if you want to add any more questions that I answer. Or just put them in the comments below. But I'm gonna take at least some of my questions that I talk about, some of the things I talk about. And I will include them, or I will pull them from these threads or the comments and actually include them in the video. So specifically, Michaela asks, please expand on the I worked with monkey brain stuff, like you were talking about actual monkey brains. Yeah, so, it's a real thing, I'm not making it up. When I was in college, so I went to college for illustration. And there was also a medical illustration degree track that you could go, which was much more like diagrams and whatnot. Not always medical illustration. Some of these people went on to do more industrial design stuff, but it was much more about like recreating something in a clear and concise fashion. So if you've ever opened up a biology textbook, it's made likely by one of these people. And so you could take cross-class disciplines, meet people in either program, and so, you know, a number of the illustration students would be taking medical illustration classes, but mostly vice versa. The illustration program was just, you know, that much more substantive, and it had a bigger student base. But so, one of my friends from my frat ended up dating one of the upperclassmen in the medical illustration program, and so I knew both of them actually fairly well. Oh, right, I should probably buy some upgrades here. Mines are twice as efficient. Grandmas are twice as efficient. Factories gain 1%. That'd be pretty good. Let's grab the grandma bonus. Yep, that's a solid bonus. And let's go for the mine bonus as well. Oh, now we're cooking. And then I'm going to go for that click bonus, I think. But, blah, 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 blah. Words. Okay, so... my friend from the frat that I was in, I wasn't really in a frat, it was kind of like a frat-adjacent program. You know, we didn't have any Greek letters with us, it was mostly for nerds, but it was kind of fun. It had its own drama, and I'll probably talk about that repeatedly over the course of my career. I've stopped a little bit because I realized the bigger my channel got, and the more I talked about it, the more likely some of these people might actually hear me talking about it, and that could get weird. But, like, whatever. But anyway, so... I was, let's see, I think I was a sophomore, and I was approached by this upperclassman and his girlfriend, and they're like, yeah, we need an illustration student to help at the lab that the medical illustration, the upperclassman was working at, because she had graduated and gotten a job with a laboratory in town. And me having nothing to do for the summer and not wanting to go back to, Massachusetts to push grocery carts for a summer, I was like, heck yeah, why not? I'll take a job. I don't really care what it pays. It's going to pay better than $7 an hour, which is, what minimum wage was at the time in Massachusetts, which is grossly insulting, to be honest. Good pocket money if you don't have any bills, but boy, if you got bills, especially in Massachusetts, that is, like, unsustainably low. Let's go for the 1,000 Fingers poke. That actually was not very good, which is unfortunate. Oh, well. I'll probably go for the oatmeal raisin. Banks being twice as efficient might actually be really good. That'll net me a decent chunk if I want to. The other thing we might want to do is just get more grandmas. We probably should. I guess let's go back to super turbo clicking. Anyway, so unfortunately they gave me the runaround for a whole month. I had a three-month summer break, and they're like, yeah, we're going to pay you $13 an hour, and then just kind of ghosted me. I knew there was still, like, they wanted me to work for them, and they were sending me emails, but I couldn't actually go in to start working. And eventually I was like, look, I'm going to have to, like, just straight up not work for you because you're not hiring me. I only got two months left for this summer, and, like, that's not going to be enough time. Right, they wanted me to work on the web design for them. That's what it was. Because I was... they didn't need a programmer. They needed an artist and a designer, which was more useful for... I had experience with that. Because I wanted to be a web designer, at least for a bit in my, in high school. Let's go for banks are twice as efficient. That seems better. Anyway, so they're giving me the runaround and eventually said, like, look, whatever you're doing, like, you either need to have me start working or I'm going to move elsewhere because, at this point you've promised me a job and then just left me hanging for a whole month. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, we're just in dispute. We want to pay you $13 an hour, and the hospital that we're associated with will only let us pay you $12 an hour. And I'm like, that's stupid. Hire me for $12. Obviously, like, the extra $1 per hour would have been nice, but guess what? It would have been nicer. A whole extra month of me working, full time. I was mad. But anyway, so I end up going in, working, did the website in a week. But they wanted me for the full summer. And they knew that, I'm not going to say that they were going to get in trouble. And I have no idea if there's any kind of, like, workers' rights thing that would help me, in this situation. If I said, like, you said you were going to hire me for the whole summer to work on this website, and you hired me for a week and then let me go. Like, I feel like I probably could have gone to my college's ombudsman's office and been like, yo, I got effectively scammed by these people offering me a job and forcing me to pay, a fair bit in rent. Like, it was not cheap, living on campus for a summer. I was subletting from one of my friends. And yeah, I mean, whatever. This is a pure hypothetical, so I shouldn't be hung up on it. But I was mad about it, but they eventually bring me in. And so I did the website. It was just, the employee profiles and just talking about the mission statement, a couple of, like, blog setup things, just really basic stuff so people could figure out who this lab was and what they did. And then I was like, now what? I'm done with the website. And they're like, oh. Yep, nope, that's done. You're good. Well, we can't just let you go. Because luckily they recognized that would be, like, ultra dick move. And I was very happy about that. That's probably actually better to get, like, several banks. And then a bunch of factories. And then probably grandmas. Because the more grandmas we get, the more of that synergy bonus. Unfortunately, the farms are dropping off pretty heavily. And the cursors are pretty useless. I guess the cursors aren't actually that much worse than the grandmas. It's just the grandmas have the extensive synergy bonus. Oh well. Anyway, so they didn't have anything for me to do for like a little bit, and it took them a little while to figure out what to do with me. And eventually they said, all right, fine. We're not really supposed to have you handling any of the brains that we're working with. And, at this point, I knew what they were doing, but I didn't entirely understand. But I guess to explain what this is, I've been dancing around the monkey brain part of this. But so the lab I was working with was dissecting, was it capuchin brains or something? But it was a type of monkey that is very genetically similar to humans, and they were specifically raising them and dissecting them at various ages while looking for markers for, I believe it was it OCD? I think it was OCD. Looking for obsessive-compulsive markers in these monkeys' brains to try and figure out, in humans, what causes OCD and what can be done to, beyond just like therapy, but like what can be done medically to help people that have OCD, and just understanding why people have it and how you can spot it in a person's scans and a bunch of other things. And I think it's mostly just all experimental, but apparently this was like one of those labs that was fairly instrumental in even understanding OCD as being more than just a personality trait, but actually a medical condition of a sort. And so what they would do is they would I'm not going to say routinely harvest monkeys, because that comes off as weird. But I mean, that's effectively what they would do. They would routinely, dissect these monkeys, take their brains, put them on ice, and then using it was like a laser or something, but you would cut very thin slices of the brain. So you would have 700 plus, or was it thousands of layers? I forget. But you would have just tons and tons of micro thin layers of the monkey brain. And you could see all of the individual layers and like how the monkey's brain was folded in on itself, because brains are wrinkly, and so you could actually look at how their brain was formed and compare. So you could find like your control monkey, who is just totally normal, and then a monkey that clearly had signs of OCD, and you could take a look at them and actually figure out the markers. What parts of the brain are different, and you do this to a scale of like hundreds of monkeys. And you'd start to see patterns one way or another. And so, my role in this was actually to work with my upperclassman that had graduated and effectively offered me the job. She would painstakingly trace the monkey brains with a vector program. Every single layer, every single curve, to the best of her abilities, and she was quite good at it. And then I would take it and run them through a program that would map them into effectively a really rudimentary 3D model. And then I would take that 3D model and using Blender and some other 3D programs, I would effectively create a brain model that could be interacted with, rotated, zoomed in on. You could turn the exterior and the exterior off and look at some other parts. You could look at different parts of the brain that weren't quite the brain, like the top of the spinal column, and some other things. And it was my job to put those together. And so I spent an entire summer doing that. And then they're like, yeah, we'll contact you again in a couple months when we need the next set handled. And then they never did. But that was my summer working for a medical lab, effectively a research medical lab, studying monkey brains. It was actually really cool. I'm not going to say I'm, like, super proud of what I did there, because realistically I think I'm kind of detached to it. But at the same time, it was a neat opportunity, and I'm glad I did it for one of the 2 real jobs I've ever had. 3 if you count pushing carts in a grocery store. I don't really, to be honest. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, so I guess a couple of tidbits on that one. One, the hospital was, like, swarming with Amish people or Amish adjacent people. It was quite interesting. They had a separate section of it that catered to them better, so it was less of a culture shock being in this, relatively high-end hospital. And so it would be quite interesting where I'd be eating my salad, and I'd be eating alone generally in the hospital cafeteria, because I didn't know any of the medical staff, nor was I really. I'm not going to say I wasn't really allowed to mingle with them, but not on the clock. But yeah, I'd just be in the cafeteria, and there would just be like a full-on Amish client just hanging out because somebody was, needed the hospital for some reason. I never asked, but it was always interesting to just look over and see. Let's see, other things. At one point, the hospital was mistakenly... Ooh, Frenzy. I should probably turn that on. So there was a certain point in time where the... let's see. Do we get a temple? Or do we get a factory? I'm just gonna get those. There's a certain point where effectively a bunch of anti-abortion protesters caught wind that the hospital network that I was working for, because they did both like actual hospital stuff and medical research. And so I was in the medical research wing section of it. And, I had nothing to do with that, obviously. But, so a number of these protesters heard that the hospital network, Temple Wizard, and there's some other things we're kind of unlocking here. But they heard that the network was doing abortions. And so without actually doing any research, they said, oh, clearly it's the hospital that I worked at is the one that is currently doing abortions. And so they all gathered outside and were just screaming at people that were out there. Suffice to say, the hospital I was working at did not offer abortions. It was a completely separate location that they were partnered with. But I had the very intense displeasure of being screamed at by a bunch of wackadoo people outside who had no idea who I was or what I was doing. But they were quite adamant that I was somehow attached to the baby killing process. Which, I mean, the irony was, most of these monkey brains that I was handling, at least in the summer that I was working there, most of them were relatively young infant monkeys, I think. Many of them were not fully developed. And, so, I mean, technically they were right, but they were also very wrong, and I think if I had tried to explain it to them, I don't think they would have understood in the slightest. I don't know. But that was weird, and I didn't like it. And then a couple weeks later, then the people that actually were concerned about the monkey brains, then they found out about the monkey brain laboratory and animal experiments that we were working with. It wasn't necessarily just the lab that I was working with. There were a number of other labs, sub-laboratories or whatever, that were working with various animals as part of this hospital network. And so, a much smaller, and generally, I'm actually going to say they were more polite. They were quite inflammatory, but they weren't, calling me a baby killer. They were just kind of mad and had a bunch of sad signs about animal experimentation. But they were all gathered outside and were shouting things about, animal cruelty. And I think I sympathize with them a little bit more because, like, I do feel quite weird about, say, eating veal. Or lamb. Like, that stuff just feels kind of weird and gross to me, and I try to avoid it. Unless it's, like, a dish that I have not had in a while, and I'm like, oh, but I really, really want a blank. But it's rare that I actually will go out of my way for that. But, yeah, so those people were outside for a while, too. And, I don't know. It was odd. And those are pretty much the only really notable stories about working at this place. It was a really boring job. And I guess the other thing was that I was like I'm not going to say a really bad employee, because they gave me a 10-year-old Mac. And this is like in 2010. So this was like a Mac from 2000. Okay, maybe it wasn't 10-year-old. But it was like a Mac from 2004 or 2005, if even. It might have even been older than that. But this thing barely ran. And so when I said I was working with programs that, like, let you do cool things with 3D models, what I really mean is that my computer was locked up rendering and exporting things constantly because it took so long to do anything. So I actually spent much of the month of August of, working there that summer doing nothing because I couldn't, because I only had one computer that, was operational. They wouldn't give me another one. They didn't have the budget for it, or they didn't care to get me like requisition second computer, even though I asked a couple of times. And so eventually, like, they'd come over and be like, Wander, why are you just staring at the computer? And I'd like point it, and it's like, it's rendering. And they're like, well, can you do anything else with it? And I'd like move the mouse, and the cursor would take, I'm gonna say, a solid minute to go from wherever it was on the screen to wherever I tried to move it that first time. It was so slow. And it took like a week to render these things. Nowadays, I can render those models in like 5 minutes on my computer. And I even brought in my laptop to do it on my laptop, and they said I couldn't because it was proprietary data, and it was potentially like a HIPAA violation because it was at a hospital, and you need to have all of your computers secure, which is probably actually quite true, but it was kind of frustrating. It was kind of frustrating all the same. Did we get a bunch of Ramos? Yeah. I don't actually know if that was the right way to do it. But whatever. I guess look at a bunch of cursors too. I could turn on the get more, like, buy in the hundreds, but I don't think I want to do that. I think I'd much rather just use the auto clicker to buy as many things as I possibly can. But yeah, so I brought in my own laptop to get work done faster, and they told me I couldn't because, you know, data breach violations. So I put that away. And so I'm not going to say the end result, my final solution to working at that place was to bring in physical novels and just read them for like a full 8 hours. I made it through a decent chunk of The Wheel of Time, all of The Name of the Wind, and whatever the sequel to that one was. Tons of Star Wars books, and like a couple other novels. I read really fast. And I knew the second in command at that lab, I don't actually remember what her role was, but she was not happy about the fact that I was not doing work and was just reading books. But like, I was doing work, I was just doing the only work that I could do, that I was ordered to do. And eventually they had me like doing other tasks, so I didn't feel as useless. But there was definitely this kind of like weird disconnect between you know, me working there and then me actually working there. I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's the story of how I worked with monkey brains. It's not as tactile or probably as gruesome as many of you thought, but it was kind of interesting all the same. Gosh darn it, we got a frenzy. I think I might just build this up and see if I can buy something big. Instead of trying to nickel and dime for, you know, another temple or a couple of banks, I'm just gonna hoard this and try and get a big boost. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I guess with that, we're just gonna let this frenzy run out, and then I think I will stop. I've got I don't want to say it's a medical condition, but I've been having trouble with my headset recently, which I use to commentate over. It's just, I mean, standard headphones. But the problem is, it hurts to wear this thing for like half an hour straight, and that's actually like a serious problem. Maybe part of it is the fact that I have glasses, and so it's pushing my glasses into my ears, but that's part of it. It's certainly part of the reason why it's uncomfortable. But yeah, it sucks to wear headphones nowadays, and I don't like that. I think it'll probably get better once it cools down around here too, because I don't do well with heat, and so headphones are heavy and sweaty and hurty. But it's fine. We got a lot of money now. That's a good system. Alright, let's take a look at what I can buy. So, cookie production multiplier, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. Temples are twice as efficient, grandmas are twice as efficient, banks gain a bonus. I got 4 temples. Doubling this would be pretty good. Banks gain 1% CPS per... Maybe. Alternatively, we go banker at grandma's plus the bank. Yeah, I think that would be better. Let's grab that. And then this. And then the factory upgrade. That pretty much just doubled my cookie income. Not quite. Still an extra 150 mil. Going for the extra temple would have been nice, but that's just an extra, or 150,000. The temple upgrade would have only gotten me, I mean, a decent chunk, but not quite the same. Summons cookies with magic spells. That just sounds really concerning. My farms are still pretty bad. Oh, right, because I never actually got the farm upgrade. All right, well, one way or another, I will see you guys in the next episode of the Cookie Cast. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next. I am always open to suggestions, and I have a bunch of topics I guess I should start looking over and figuring out which ones I'm going to respond to. But, with all that said, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.